What's up, millennials? In a few of my last videos about Vue, I received a couple of comments from people saying, well, smart glass is cool and everything, but like, aren't we going to work more and more from home? Aren't we going to work more and more remotely? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you my thoughts about that. And we're also briefly going to talk about the additional investment of $200 million by the government of Singapore. Before we start, a few things first. First of all, I created a free Discord channel for you to join. The only thing that I ask for you in return is your name and email address. So if you want to join, then you can go to nasami.com/discord and then everything should be fine. Secondly, Stock O'Clock. These are very short 1-minute videos with news about the stock market that I post every single trading day. And lastly, as always, don't trust me, verify me. I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not an expert, just a regular random dude on the internet. Let's first very briefly talk about the additional investment from the government of Singapore, actually. I'm probably actually going to make a separate video about this because there are some things that I want to find out, like the percentages of the pro forma ownership, because there are going to be some maybe additional shares and that could lead to share dilution. I'm not entirely sure yet, so I'm going to try to figure that out. I might actually need to wait for their next S4 filing. So we'll see about that. In any case, the GIC, the government of Singapore, actually a private investment firm that is owned by the government of Singapore, has made an additional purchase of $200 million in shares. They already had $300 invested, and now they're going to up it a little bit by $200 million. So in total, that's going to be $500 million. But who is GIC exactly? Let's very briefly talk about that. GIC is a private company that is fully owned by the government of Singapore, right? And this company simply basically manages the foreign reserves of the government of Singapore. They don't disclose their entire portfolio because I suppose that they don't want people to know how many foreign reserves the government of Singapore has exactly. But as I've seen in a few websites, they often spend about $1 to $2 billion on various companies, right? And they also seem to be looking more and more into climate change right now because that's a very hot topic, of course. So that's probably why they chose Vue. And yeah, 500 million. So basically that looks a little bit on the lower end if you compare it with some other investments they did. I usually saw investments of like 1 to 2 billion, so 500 million is a little bit less than average, I think, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it's still great for Vue to have some additional cash, of course, on their balance sheet. But now let's talk about smart glass in offices versus residential buildings. If you go through their website, if you go through their investor presentation, through the YouTube channel, you're going to see that their current focus is on offices, right? If we pull up the amount of offices or like the type of offices that they have, currently they have things like offices from Netflix, from Facebook even. And if you go through this, then basically almost everything is offices. You're going to see a few other things in here as well. You're going to see some hospitals. You are going to see some airports as well, some hotels, and some schools as well, right? But as you've correctly said in the comments, well, we are going to be working more and more from home. We're going to be working remotely, right? And I listened to an interview with the CEO of Vue called Raoul Mulpuri. It's a very short interview of about 20 minutes, very interesting to listen to. I'll put the link in the description. But Raoul Mulpuri actually says, yeah, sure, we are going to be working more and more from home. But we as people, we are social animals, if you will. We still need to socialize. We still need to maintain our relationships, right? And it might not be anymore that we just work like 1 day per week at home, but maybe we work 3 days at home and maybe we work 2 days at the office. So we're still going to need offices, he says, right? And I personally think that is true. When I see my friends, for example, they say, yeah, sure, it's not bad working from home. It's actually pretty okay sometimes because you save quite a lot of time. But sometimes you do actually want to be with your colleagues in real life instead of on a Zoom call, right? What I think is going to happen in the future with offices is that we are going to have probably smaller offices. I was listening to a video from Meet Kevin a few days ago, He was talking about a company that I personally don't know because I live in the Netherlands. He was talking about Dave and Buster's, I think. And he was telling us that, well, when he was a kid, these stores were massive, right? But now Dave & Buster's is actually focusing on smaller stores because these are very much more efficient for the stores and the people who go to these stores. So I think something very similar is going to happen to offices as well. I think that the offices are just going to be smaller buildings, smaller offices in general. So maybe instead of having one massive office, you can divide that into 3-4 different offices for different companies. So I think that is going to be the trend in the next coming 10-20 years or so. But then in the interview with Raoul Mulpuri, he also says, well, we're actually also focusing on residential. He says it's still a secret, and I believe that interview was from a few months ago or something like that. But he did say that they are working more and more on residential. He says that he's got smart glass in his own home and that about 50 other homes have smart glass as well, but these were mainly favors, so I'm thinking that these were probably like friends and families and maybe employees of you as well. But he did say that in 2021, they are going to make a big announcement with regards to smart glass for residential use as well. Now, I've gone to their website and there are already some projects on their website. These are all multi-family apartment buildings. So I could imagine that we see more and more of these semi-modern new apartment buildings, right? I don't think that people like you and me who maybe have a home, I don't have a home, but I can imagine that people who already have a home with glass and etc. in it, they're probably not going to get smart glass instead. But if you build a new building, a new multifamily apartment building like these ones, then I can imagine that some people are actually going to start installing this smart glass. Because smart glass does actually offer some advantages. I think smart glass is going to take away some things in your home, some things that you can actually save money on. And we've already talked a little bit about that in previous videos, but smart glass, for example, can eliminate the need of blinds, for example, possibly curtains as well. You can maybe use your smart glass as a TV in the future. And well, that means that you maybe can get rid of your normal TV, so that saves a little bit of money. And one massive thing is air conditioning, right? Personally, I live in the Netherlands and we don't really need air conditioning all that often. Every now and then we get like very hot days, but these are like a few weeks every year, right? But think about especially places like Southern Europe, like Spain and Italy, but also places, of course, like the Middle East, where it can just get very, very hot. And imagine if you can then save lots of money on your air conditioning because you have smart glass. That could be a huge advantage as well. But also, if you go back to the working from home, working remotely, I can also imagine that people are going to want a healthy environment to live in because they are going to be spending a lot of time within their homes and they're going to want a healthy environment so that they can work in a healthy way as well. I already hear people saying, well, I want a nice chair to have, I want a nice desk to have as well so that I can have a positive posture, a healthy posture as well. So I can imagine people wanting smart glass as well if that actually does provide health benefits. That is something that we are going to look at in a future video about View because that's something I'm interested as well, the effect of smart glass on your health. There were studies that actually confirmed this, but I believe that some of the authors or employees from View as well, so they might be very biased, of course. But yeah, we're going to look at that in a future video. But on the other hand, I do think that cost can actually be a big issue for View in order to get their smart glass in residential homes as well, because I'm not entirely sure if people are actually going to pay about like 50% more for smart glass in comparison to normal glass, right? Because I think that regular people probably don't really see enough benefits of smart glass in the long term or in the short term to justify that 50% extra cost. Now, some people tell me, well, okay, but employers could actually see this as an investment, right? Because they, in return, get healthier and more productive employees. But I don't think that employers are going to actually invest in smart glass for all of their employers so that those employers, or employees rather, can actually become more productive during work, because they would then need to install smart glass in every single home, and that is going to be quite a massive investment for these employers. So in general, I think what I've said earlier as well, that people probably are not going to renovate their house and put smart glass in it. But if you have like a new multifamily apartment building that is being constructed, then I could actually see some of those buildings being equipped with smart glass from view. So I'm wondering, what do you think about smart glass for residential applications? Do you believe like that people like you and me are going to pay for smart glass if it's actually 50% more expensive than normal glass? Let me know in the comments. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of strategy View is going to implement to try and get their smart glass in residential buildings as well. I think this year, 2021, is going to be a very exciting year for View, the company itself, and also View's shareholders, people like you and me. And in any case, I think there's no merger date just yet, but in the interview with Raoul Mulpuri, he said that they are going to merge in Q1 2021. So it should be within a few months, I believe. Now, if you haven't seen the previous video about View just yet, then I'm going to put it somewhere in the end screen right now. And with that being said, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.